Hello everybody, welcome to the next episode of my quick custom variations guide for Mortal Kombat 11 Ultimate, and today we are checking out the Blood Queen Skarlet. One of my favorite characters in Mortal Kombat, quickly rose to being one of my favorites in Mortal Kombat 9 when she was a DLC character. I think she, design-wise and personality-wise, is much better between the MKX comic and MK11, although I will admit that I'm not a big fan of zoner playstyles, although I've come to respect more neutral footsies-based play a lot more. I like combos, and she's just not really a rush-down, mix-up kind of combo character no matter how you cut her. But I still very much enjoy Skarlet in this game. I think she's a lot of fun to play when you want to play that kind of playstyle. And we're going to talk about one primary variation today, so another quick one. But we'll also talk about a secondary variation to play her a little bit more how I want to play her, even though it's not as competitively viable. I feel like Skarlet has some pretty good customs, and I expect to see a lot of different moves getting used. But at the same time, I also feel like she has those kind of obvious, really strong moves that everyone will pick. And this first variation is a perfect example of that. So, for this variation, I've decided to pick, to no one's surprise, I'm sure, Boiling Point and Blood Port, first of all. These two moves are just super good. We'll get into them in a sec, but I've also picked Red Rain. So we'll start off with Blood Port. This is just an obvious one. Skarlet is a zoner, and Blood Port is a teleport. You can teleport behind your opponent, you can teleport in place, you can teleport far away, and you can teleport in front of your opponent. You can choose your direction, you can go wherever you want. It does cost, the move was nerfed a long time ago, it does cost you 2 defensive bars to go far, and 1 defensive bar for in front or in place, but it is free to go behind. Now it has a decent chunk of recovery, 38 frames, it's not exactly the fastest teleport in the world, and it does take a second to start up, so you can get hit out of it, but it's still a really strong teleport. The obvious uses would be twofold. First of all, in a zoning war where Skarlet is getting out-zoned or starts to lose, you can look for an opportunity to teleport in and then start pressure or grab someone to throw them full screen again, or hit them with something like this to throw them full screen again to damage. Maybe you're having a zoning war with someone, they have a slight life lead and they're starting to overtake you. You find an opportunity to teleport in, take your life lead back into a setup as well, and then restart your zoning. Or you could stay in and play a more close range game. It all depends on the matchup and the situation. But having that option is obviously just really good. And of course, the second option is when you are cornered in the corner. If somebody manages to, you've been zoning the whole game, but they back you into a corner, all you need to do is make one good read, far teleport, and you're back to neutral. This will teleport you behind the opponent and at a considerable distance away, so you can kind of get out of dodge. This is also great for characters like Cetrion. Cetrion has the same kind of teleport that also costs her 2 bars. It's expensive, but in a situation where you're cornered, it's usually better than being cornered. So, that being said, this is a pretty obvious pick. There's a lot you can do with Blood Port, so it's pure utility and movement is what makes it a really good pick here for Skarlet. The second move, of course, is Boiling Point. Now, this was a combo ender from one of her tournament variations that eventually got added. I say it's a combo ender. It's also a projectile. It is a low projectile. Most people will use it as combo ender. But it is very good in the neutral if your opponent, for some reason, is, say, like neutral ducking. You throw a lot of Blood Ball, you throw a lot of, like, the straight shot here, their highs. The opponent, obviously, has to always be worried about Tentacle. That's your main zoning tool, and that's your main thing for keeping them from just kind of sitting there and neutral ducking. But you can also now throw in Boiling Point. It has multiple ranges. You can put it in front of you, you can put it slightly ahead of you, you can put it almost full screen, and then it does have a very far, which is full screen. If I cannot fuck up the input with my D-pad. Oh my goodness. My D-pad is the worst. There we go. So, the full screen version, no matter where you hit it, basically, they all have a ton of hit advantage on hit, especially if you amp it. But the main purpose of this move is it does a just a fuckload of damage for being a projectile. Not only is it super fucking plus on hit, it's like plus 22 we just saw there. The damage it does for being a projectile, or at the end of combos if you choose to use it as a combo ender, is insane. Like, it does 12%, I believe, unenhanced, just raw, 12%. I mean, it is pretty slow, right? Like, it is a 23 frame projectile, and it is punishable if they're close enough. If they block it, it is punishable. So, I mean, I guess it makes sense, but it is a very damaging projectile. To have that option at full screen, if they get touched by this, that's just 12% gone. I mean, Tentacle is only, 8%. On top of that, you can enhance it for a bar, which is where it starts to get a little bit nutty. Because if you enhance it for just a measly bar, if I can do the input again, oh my goodness. Maybe I should just do far version. Maybe I should get closer and just do far version. Jesus. If you amp it, you get 18% damage for a projectile, essentially. Again, there are weaknesses to the move. You can block it up close, you can, and it's punishable. It is slow startup, and it is a low, but it's also purely touching the floor. So, they could jump it very easily, but that's why you kind of reinforce your other tools for zoning. But, I mean, it's not something you're going to throw out as a main zoning tool. You're not throwing this out every second. You're mostly throwing out these, or you're throwing out, these, or you're throwing out these, or, of course, mostly Blood Tentacles. And it's something you kind of throw in. It is directable, like Blood Tentacle is, right? So one of the advantages is if you think they're going to, say, dash in on you. Let's say they're here. They're gonna dash in, right? You could always put it in front of them, where they're going. You could even put it close to you. And again, if they block it close, you're in real trouble because it's punishable. But you could also catch them if they try dashing into it, and then they're going to eat 18% into you being massively advantageous. See, hit advantage of 63 from up close, which basically guarantees that they have to deal with one of these on wake up, and then because that's already on screen and you've already recovered, you can throw this to make them block both and then take double chip damage, etc. It just has a ton of utility. So, again, it can be used as a combo ender. The most unfortunate thing is that it does not combo off of stand 4-4. Which you're going to be using a lot more in this patch. And I'll get into that a little bit later as one of the strengths of Skarlet, but it doesn't combo off of this inherently. However, it will combo off of a B&B. So I'll just go ahead and show that real quick. Quick B&B. Her basic B&B starter, 2-1-2, 2-1-2, forward 4-4, into the boiling point. And that's 35% damage into a good knockdown. 35 for one bar. Of course, you can still choose to just do the regular old B&B. That's about 30% where you just use Blood Tentacle, right? It's almost 30 for free. That's still really good. But one of the big advantages of Boiling Point, again, isn't just the extra damage you're getting on it. You're getting almost an extra 6% over what you would be normally getting for a bar. It's also that on knockdown, like I said, even from very far away, on knockdown, this thing is massively plus for you. It is plus 63, like I said, from about that range. So what this means is that if you hit it from this kind of full screen distance, or hit it in a combo from very far away, where the opponent is spaced out from you like this, what's going to end up happening is this synchronizes very well with the third move, which I'll now segue into, Red Rain. Red Rain is a buff. It's a damage buff for Skarlet. If she stands in this little blood spot, she gets increased damage. And it's active for 400 frames. It's a really good amount of time. It's only 15 frame startup, which is a pretty fast fucking buff, if I'm going to be honest, and it lasts for a good amount of time. You don't have to be standing directly in the rain either. You can stand in front of it or behind it. Basically, your foot just has to be touching. You can stand a little bit more in front of it than you can behind it, I think because of the way Skarlet stands. But, like, see, I'm still getting the buff right here, because Skarlet is still glowing, so you can still make this work even if you're out-positioned. And then, on top of that, like I said, it gives you more damage, so let's say Tentacle normally does 8%, right? 80 damage. Now Tentacle does 10%, or 100 damage, which is a quite... 2% is a big deal, again, when Skarlet is a zoning character. Every one of those projectiles makes a difference if they hit or not, because she's not really focused around doing combo damage. So you're doing a ton more damage, and here's the great thing, right? Here's the great thing about this. These enhance chip damage as well. Look at how much chip he takes from Tentacle. 25. Now, normally it is 20. Like, you're not getting a, it already is great tip damage, but it's just the fact that everything you do, every attack you do while you're standing in Red Rain, so every low projectile, every straight projectile, every one of these, every blood ball, and the combination of having to block both, etc. when you force them to, is going to do more chip damage. So you're chipping the opponent out way harder, and every hit hurts even more as well. So Red Rain is great for her zoning. It's honestly one of the best damage buffs in the game, in my opinion. And here's the great thing, like I said, it synergizes with Boiling Point. So if you hit Boiling Point from this far away, around this distance, right, in your zoning range, or even full screen, right, if you hit this move, I cannot do this input for the life of me on my D-pad. If you hit this move from full screen, this is just free. Again, this is a 15 frame startup buff, right? 15 frames. And you're around plus 63 off of the Oki that you get on Boiling Point. So what ends up happening is you're taking 18%. Let's say you're doing it raw. You manage to land one raw around this distance. I've seen it happen in real matches. I've done it before in real matches. You're getting 18% damage, and then you get this buff for free. And then on Wake Up, again, the opponent can't punish this. I can, in fact, probably even just show this. I'll just show you. If I control player 2, we come in here, and we record real quick, and I do something along the lines of knocking the opponent full screen, doing this, and then block. So if I let the AI play this out, I'm Scorpion, right? So she hits me with this. I have a teleport. I'm just going to teleport in and stop her from buffing. And I didn't even time that well. The only reason she got hit there is because she was only holding block for a certain amount of time. Let me just try that again and even time it better, because I mistimed the teleport. I did it late. There. That was the fastest I could have teleported there, and she can block. So let's say you're in a matchup where the opponent has a teleport. Some matchups, they won't have one, and most characters don't have one that's as good as Scorpion's. In those matchups where they have a teleport, you can still guard. You can still flawless block in order to punish them. You can still poke them out of it. Skarlet has enough time in that situation to poke Scorpion before he can actually get teleport off, because it's a high. And most teleports like Skarlet's have too much recovery, and she can just poke them anyway, because you're so at disadvantage. Again, this is very dependent on matchup, but I've labbed a few teleports, and it doesn't seem like there's anything they can do about you buffing Red Rain from full screen if you hit with Boiling Point. In fact, you can even get it against some characters off of just Tentacle. If you hit Tentacle at full screen, if I back up more, and then do the buff, most characters can't do anything about that either. But just to note, like, you have multiple options, and of course you could always just do it like raw off of this, but then you're losing damage is usually the point. You could always just do it off of this, but then you're losing out on damage. You could always do it off of this. If you do it at, like, the end of the animation, there's a timing for it. But, like, it was always possible to do the buff off of, moves. It's very good to be able to do it off of your zoning, because even when you are full screen, zoning your opponent, you can still get off a damage buff that'll make every hit, both on block and actual hits, matter way more in the grand scheme of things. So now that I'm done, like, pandering towards these moves, there's also some wild shit you can do in the corner. This isn't even going to be a corner optimal situation, but I have another recording here. You can do some kind of corner conversion like this. Again, the starter is not optimal. Just do any kind of thing where you can guarantee Red Rain, and look at the kind of damage it will add to a corner combo when you do have the opponent cornered. That is 45% almost, and yes, it is 2 bars, but almost 45% on a zoning character, and she can very easily set that up a lot of the time, if I'm being honest. Whenever you get your opponent into the corner, Skarlet can play a pretty strong corner game, in all honesty. Like I said, and even your best projectile, right, is Boiling Point, basically. Your best is actually the Tentacle, but let's say most damaging. How about that? Boiling Point normally does 18%. If you enhance this while in Red Rain, you're getting 22%. 22%. That's just outrageous. That's just outrageous damage. 22% for 1 bar off of a projectile. You're doing combo level damage, unbreakable damage as well, for 1 projectile hitting 1 stray false move the opponent made. Again, most of the time you're going to catch them by making them, you think they're going to dash into it. So instead of doing the full screen version, you do the far version, and they dash from where they're at right now. Scorpion dashes into it on the ground and gets caught. And then he's taking, again, if you have this buff up, he's taking 22% damage. Without it, he's taking 18, and then either way, you're either getting a free buff afterwards, or you're getting a free setup into Blood Bowl, and then, you know, force him to block Tentacle, or you just get a free Tentacle on Wake Up, etc. You can do anything you want. You have tons of pressure on them on knockdown, and their wake-up options really don't matter at that point. You can call out forward rolls, you can, you know, wake up 3s and up 2s aren't going to help them. There's really nothing they can do using their wake-up options, so you just negate having to play that mind game entirely because you're zoning them. This is a very strong variation. I think this makes Skarlet very good. And on top of the fact that, like I said, I was going to talk about it earlier, one of the biggest problems that Skarlet had pre-patch was that she couldn't really jail into plus frames at all. Any of her really good, like, standing moves, she has a lot of gaps in her strings that are easily flawless blocked, which makes it hard to play Skarlet up close as, like, a brawler character, right? But now, since patch, it is still hard to play her as a brawler character, but now since patch, all of your pokes are way more plus on hit, including Skarlet's. So Skarlet's down 1 is 14 frames, down 3 is 14 frames, and down 4 is a massive 20 frames. So what this means is if you ever hit from this distance, that far away, a down 3, or a down 1 up close, these will jail into stand 4-4. And there's, again, jail means that the opponent cannot duck it, even though it's a high. They have to either get hit by it, which will then lead into them getting pushed full screen for 18% by Blood Tentacle, or it'll mean if they block it, Skarlet is +6 at this distance. +6. And what that means is that she basically gets this for free, or she can do, you know, she can do, like, back 3 for free. She can do something like back 3 for free, and then, of course, off of back 3, she could shoot this, or she could do that into Blood Tentacle from that distance. She could do something like this, and then look at all the pushback. You can't punish her. You're taking a ton of chip. If you get hit, it does a ton of damage. She can do all kinds of stuff like that. It puts her at the perfect space to play with her ranged tools, and then makes you eat them. So every time you end up taking a poke, every time that Skarlet hits you with a poke, she's going to jail into this, and then jail that into something else that's going to be chipping you down. And again, if your opponent decides to get close and you have Red Rain active, any of this chip damage is going to do more, or any combos that you get. Also, a small side note that if the opponent stands in Red Rain, their damage they do is decreased as well. It doubles as a decreased damage for them on top of increased damage for you. So if they hit you during it, they'll also be doing slightly less damage to you. It's not the biggest deal. It's not game-changing, but it is something to add to that move as well. So I think this custom variation is very strong. Obviously, it's very centered around zoning, very centered around the neutral play, but I still think, you know, that's what Skarlet's good at. That's what she's meant for, so I think it's a lot of fun to play in that regard, and I think it helps Skarlet a lot. And since the change to her pokes, reinforcing this kind of stuff, it just reinforces this style of play even more, because in situations where you need to teleport in, you're going to be jailing into plus frames a lot more off of pokes. And that just makes Skarlet stronger as a character. Anytime someone gets in, if you can land a poke, you get tons of pressure going. I think this jumps Skarlet up the tier list a couple rungs, but that's just me. The other variation that I was going to talk about, we'll talk about it really quick, includes an alternate to Boiling Point, and removes the Red Rain buff in favor of the parry, as well as Retribution. We'll jump over and take a look at that really quick. Alright, so this is the second variation I was just talking about, and like I said, we've included Dagger Dance, which is Skarlet's parry, as well as Retribution, which is sort of another low directable projectile, very similar to Boiling Point. It even looks very similar in the animation. This one does far less damage, considerably less damage, only about 10% unenhanced. If you enhance it, it does get more damage. You get 16%, but it becomes even on hit. You don't really get the hit advantage. This one does keep the opponent standing. And one of the main advantages is that it can restand and is +7 on hit. So, you can do a lot of things where you end combos in it, for example, and then jail into stand 4-4, you know? I think this will actually also combo off of stand 4-4 if you do it right. Yep, like this. It has a lot of situations where it can guarantee pressure if you don't enhance it. I don't know why I enhanced it there. If you do something like this, you can jail into a tentacle. Also, you can do things, like I said, where you do it on knockdown, and then the opponent, you can try to jail into, like, stand 4-4, and then go for all of her mix-ups after that. Why I pick this, in this variation, why I combine it with Dagger Dance, is I like to play this one as a more brawler Skarlet. It's up in your face, fishing for combos, even though she has a lot of gaps in her strings. I pick this Skarlet to try to stagger into parry sometimes, stagger into throw, finish the string. I picked the Skarlet for some teleport, because I also kept teleport in this variation. Some teleport shenanigans. You can do things like teleport at the end of this string, and then try to grab them on wake up. And then when they start doing wake up buttons, you know, or they try to do, let's say, a get up and try to do something like an invincible reversal. If I can actually get the teleport. You have to teleport on, like, the final hit. It's a very interesting timing. You can, like, parry their wake-ups if they're really worried about you teleporting around them. None of this is very competitively viable, in my opinion. For the way that Skarlet is designed to be played, she doesn't do very well up close. Well, that's why I'm just showing this variation off really quick. Because basically what this lets me do is it gives me a restand into plus frames that can then jail back into more plus frames, which then jail into a ton of chip damage. It gives me teleport back so that I can use teleport more aggressively in this variation on reads or on staggers or on things like that. Things where I've conditioned my opponent not to press and that I can get gimmicks going. And I picked parry so that after teleports I can, like, trick them into trying to hit me with, like, a down 1 or something instead of using, like, something low. Because also parry has a cool brutality attached to it, and it gives you back health if you enhance it, so I'm getting back health off of every parry. I play this one as my more up-close and personal Skarlet, and there's a few different... I've seen other people try to play up-close and personal brawler Skarlets, and there's a few different moves that they've picked out. There's a few different things they've liked. This is the one that I've been playing around with, that I have fun with. I will admit, though, it's definitely not as strong. Skarlet is meant to be played as a zoner, and even in this variation, I still have to rely a lot on my projectiles in order to get work done, you know, and stuff like that. But this allows me to play Skarlet more casually in a way that I find more, you know, fun to play. By combining these moves together. All the moves have cool brutalities as well. Like I said, we have a brutality off of both Retribution and off of the Dagger Dance parry. So, just a quick look at something that I play personally, you know, that gives Skarlet a different way of playing, but she's definitely not designed for it. Like I said, though, go ahead, go into the comments, tell me what you do with your Skarlet. Tell me how you've designed her, different moves that you mix and match. She has a ton of great moves. Some people might prefer using Red Mist still in their pressure variations for the restand, even though it does replace Tentacles, so you're losing a lot of utility there, in my opinion. Some people might prefer keeping the damage buff for better corner combos. Some people might prefer having Cell Siphon so they can pull the enemy up close to them with that restand and maybe go for some grabs or something. I think Skarlet's throws are very strong because she has crushing blows on both, so that could work. Again, tons of creativity. Whatever you like is what you like. At the end of the day, fun is what matters more than competition here. We're not tournament players or anything, so fun is what actually matters. Even in ranked, you should still be able to have fun and play around. Stay tuned. I have a couple more videos still coming on more characters for quick custom guides. even though some of them weren't exactly quick. But definitely stay tuned if you want to see more of my opinions, just some interesting stuff maybe. Maybe you learn something. And I'll catch you guys in the next one.